So, now that I believe we have just about everybody back together again. This is the Hunting Island Nature Center. You all notice that we crossed 2 bridges to come over here. So if you notice when we got to the point where there were a bunch of shrimp boats over to the right, there was a place on the left called Shrimp Shack. That was the end of St. Helena Island. After we crossed out of St. Helena Island, then we passed the gated area on the left called Harbor Island. That was not a real island. There was $50,000 spent on sand to build that up, to then build those buildings on top of it. It was not a complete island. Now where we are now, we call this one Hunting Island, but actually Hunting, Pritchard, and the one that's across the bridge here, Fripp, at one time were called the Hunting Islands. They were all one connected body at some point, and then as they broke up, we always still call them the Hunting Islands, because for Gullah Geechees, we never lived on these, but we came to them to hunt. We hunt minks, deer, wild boar, and all of them that here. And Mitch will tell you a lot. We got a lot of deer around here now still, and raccoons. Okay, I don't know how many minks y'all see anymore.
We see a few in the
A few, okay.
in the salt.
Yeah, so we still have a large amount of wildlife in this vicinity because this has always been their habitat. And so we've lived in balance with them. With us being on St. Helena, and they're pretty much being over here. But now because Mitch and them are kind of evicting their raccoon population, we're starting to see them. I saw a raccoon at the post office the other day. Yeah, and it was that night, and he was looking at us like, what do you want? You know, like he was the postmaster general. So it's been very interesting looking at the dynamics of history here, because one of the things you'll notice after you eat and you get to talk to Captain Greenos and you go out, you'll notice there's a difference even in the quality of earth below you. Over here, it's a lot more sandy, where on St. Helena you would have noticed more soil, and so this was not an area where we could plant all of those crops that we've been talking about throughout the day either. It wouldn't have been sustainable. So the fishing and all those wildlife creatures were a whole nother industry, because we used to trap a lot of those creatures for their fur. But fortunately today, Hunting Island is a wildlife preserve, and Hunting Island Beach is the #1 state park in all of South Carolina. All right, so they've been trying, try to get it, from us, but we got it. We kept that #1 slot for a long time now. And so we're very happy that the Gullah Geechee Sea Island Coalition and the Gullah Geechee Fishing Association partner with the Hunting Island Nature Center. And so this is Ranger Mitch, all right? And he's going to tell you a lot more about why the Nature Center is here, what types of things they do here, what kind of creatures are in the other room that y'all will get a chance to see, and the other things that they do to keep this going. And then after that, you're going to have a chance to actually talk some more with Captain Bree, who I told you about earlier, who is our cast net maker. So, take it over, Ranger.
Quet, I'd like to welcome you back here. It's always an honor to have you.
Thank you.
And it's a pleasure to see you again. I'd like to welcome you guys here as well, here to Hunting Island State Park. As Queen just told you, we are the crown jewel of the state park system. We had over 1.3 million visitors here last year, and we are the most visited park in the state. Hunting Island is a 5,000-acre park. We have 3,000 acres of pristine salt marsh and 2,000 acres of maritime forest. Hunting Island, as Queen Quet said, is a barrier island. South Carolina has 27 barrier islands off of our coast, and all 27 of the barrier islands were formed during the past 12,000 years, basically, just to give you a quick coastal geology. Over the past 1.8 million years, we have had, Earth's history has had 4 major glaciations, or ice ages. 12,000 years ago saw the end of the last major glaciation, where the water started melting. So with these 4 glaciations, whenever the water would freeze, we would have a tremendous drop in sea level. When it would melt, the sea level would rise again. It would freeze, the sea level would fall, melt, sea level would rise again. So each time it would freeze and melt, the ocean would encroach upon what we now know as North America, the North American continent, distributing different types of sediment. And just like Queen said, the barrier islands have a more sandy texture. So every time the glaciers would melt, it would distribute sediment apart from each even as far inland as like present-day Columbia, South Carolina. So the ocean has came to west 4 times over the past 2 decades. So during the past 12,000 years, and we were at the end of the last epoch, which is called the Pleistocene era. And that moved us into talking nice in front. Sorry. So that moved us into at the end of what was then known as the Pleistocene era into the Holocene, which we are in the present day epoch of the Holocene era. We are still in that interglacial period today. Where we're having a gradual rise in sea level of about 1 centimeter per year. And so as 4,500 years ago, we had an evening out of the sea level. It stopped freezing and thawing out and freezing and thawing out. It stayed. Today's present sea level is about where it was about 5,000 years ago, which means that all of the sediment that was distributed into the sea during the last glacier melting has been gradually washed up over the past 5,000 years, forming our barrier islands. So with all the freezing and thawing of the continent, the Appalachian mountain chain, which at one time stretched from Quebec, Canada, down into northern Alabama, is made up of solid granite rock. So basically, all the barrier islands in the state of South Carolina is eroded Appalachian mountain chain. This is solid granite rock. So I just went outside just a few minutes ago and pulled this up out of the ground. This is what we call sand, of course. It's basically the three minerals of mica, feldspar, and quartz. The 3 minerals that make up solid granite rock. So basically, we are standing on a chunk of eroded Appalachian mountain chain. That's what Hunting Island is. Eroded sand from the Appalachian Mountains. And so, as the Earth's oceans stabilized about 4,500 years ago, the oceans, of course, we have 2 high tides, 2 low tides daily, slowly washed up this eroded sediment from the mountains that was being transported into the sea by freshwater rivers flowing over the mountain into the ocean, being transported south by the offshore current, which runs north to south 24 hours a day, slowly pushing up onto the forming beach ridge, which is the first habitat or environment of the barrier island. The very first thing to form is a beach ridge. And basically, again, it's just washed up, eroded Appalachian mountains. So that beach ridge slowly, over a couple thousand years, builds up more and more, forming sand dunes. As more and more sand piles up, the ocean gets further and further away from the beach ridge. And then that allows sand dunes to accumulate as grass and stuff grows into sand dunes. That's the second environment of the barrier island. Behind the sand dunes can grow less salt-tolerant species of plants like live oak, cabbage palmetto, and slash pine, forming the maritime forest. And then ultimately, the salt marsh forms on the lee side over time the maritime forest. So those are the 4 habitats of the barrier organization. Thank you for choosing Hunting Island as one of your destinations. If there's anything I can do for you, please let me know here at your service. If you need anything, let me know.
Any questions before he goes? Yeah.
Yes, ma'am.
What were the 4 habitats again?
The very first thing to form, beach ridge, sand dunes, maritime forest, salt marsh. And by the way, South Carolina has more salt marsh per acre for upstate than any state on the eastern coast. We have about 500,000 acres of coastline. Of that 500,000 acres, 350,000 acres of that is salt marsh. That represents 20% on the eastern United States coast. And of that 20%, half of that, 10%, is in Beaufort County. Because, just like the gentleman said, we are at or below sea level. Beaufort County is at or below sea level.
That's interesting.
So that's good. That's good for our environment.
It is. Really?
And a storm come through, 1940, the left day of, I was 16 years old, April. The fourth storm come through, left day of August. I was since I didn't know. I was 16 years old, I was old about that. Since I didn't know, a storm come, 1940, I've been right there. And a storm come, and after that, I get storm name. You go in and kill blood off my name.
Yeah.
And then storm I come, them somebody come, pick the pole stone there, been young. Goodbye, they give you that. I was gone, but the storm come, keep the water back. Marathon, keep the water back. So then come back, come the pole stone. Then come we had a pole stone, but then come the pole stone, and there been there. We had not really one of.
Lord willing.
Gone. That's
So Cap, that been before the racist storm that?
we have
Before that?
they tag him name after
That, yeah.
Before they also become pole stone, after that tag him name.
Okay, so that's when the grid said that only does what's the name from. Okay, I understand. Wow, that's something else. So, yeah. Now, y'all see here, ready to join the Cap. Is there any way you can turn like sideways and do it, or no? So they can see you a little bit. Okay. Yeah, it's always easier if y'all get up and come closer, like he said. So you can see the ties. So he wants y'all to come gather around. Come up. So how long you been working on this part, Cap?
Well, no,
You just started this one.
yeah, just put the same way you come in.
Oh, okay. Oh, so you've been working fast.
Then I go home, I want this again, because he,
Yeah, you leave them to keep showing them.
I can't show him one.
Okay.
When I go home, I want again.
I got you. Until the next time I call you.
Yeah.
Then you keep on.
That's right.
Yeah, yeah.
So this is just a work in progress all the time.
Yeah, because see, what'll happen is otherwise he'll have a whole bunch of completed ones. So he's been keeping this one, so he work on a piece each time we have a group, and then leave it like it is until next group. Otherwise, he keeps completing them, and then he'll just have a whole bunch of these around until people buy them. So he got to the point where he said, you know what, I'm just gonna keep this. Yeah, you like these here that he has, you can purchase. Yeah, and then even on our site, GullahGeechee.biz, if you ever want to order them, you can always order them. And then he does 5 feet or 6 feet.
He's turning his head off. So
So how do you hold?
Just like that.
So he's trying to go back to this. He's like, how you gonna leave me? Hi there. What's going on? I don't have any food. What do you eat?
mice.
Mice? Other snakes?
We like particularly venomous animals.
He eats venomous animals?
He can eat copperheads and rattles.
That's interesting. See, cool. You see him, you know your grandma gonna have a fit to know you play with a snake. Yeah, you go, I don't know why you keep crawling around me. Hi y'all, y'all see what the queen has to go through? I gotta be a snake handler. Y'all 100 children, don't be scared for coming to me now. Y'all say, oh great God, to see the queen had a snake in her hand and things like that. Don't be scared, y'all. Oh, I think he wanna get to the floor.
He might.
Yeah, I'm alright. If he gets on the floor, I'm gonna take a walk. Yeah, you wanna take a picture while I have him?
As soon as he hits the floor, I'm gonna get on the floor.
Oh, yeah.
I'm gonna throw her down, cover fire.
I'll always get eaten up first, so I'm just letting y'all know, so y'all. So the shorter you want, the extra one, that is shorter. She's the first one to go.
Speaking of, were often also constructed to go out to meet those ships, unload what they call the black cargo, black gold. That's what they call the human beings that were being sold from Africa. Then they were brought in through these riverways that you see to the various plantations and to various different points where they were called the slave auction blocks. All right? After being sold, then people would be dispersed onto these different islands, again, many times transported by water. Because again, no bridges. 1600s, 1700s, early 1800s, no bridges. All right, and many of our islands still don't have bridges connecting them to the mainland even now. So you have a situation where many times today we might not think about it. So I wanted you to be clear on that, because even now in terms of what techniques of fishing we're using, we not only use different vessels because of depth of water, but also traditionally, because we take the bateau boats out, we would take them from what are called landings. Those landing areas for us tie back to chattel enslavement because those landings were what brought us in. We also have a statement, the water to bring we are, the water might take you back. And so those were places that brought us in and on to many of the plantations. So most of us that live around here in St. Helena, our family history dates all the way back to transatlantic slave trade. We've been in the same place for 400 years. So it's very little that you don't know about somebody else's family around here, okay? If we don't know them, they must have just get you. Okay? So we can tell you straight. Trust that one, don't trust that one. That thing that trifling, that family trifling. That one that fish, that one that farm, that one that rears cow, that one this here. Because we know the great-great-granddaddy did the same thing. The great-great-grandmama did the same thing. If it's story all the time, then we know all that didn't get them on it. You know, so that's the thing because we've been in the same place. So in some ways, we're like oyster banks. We don't move. We don't go nowhere. They got to take a major catastrophe to kind of move us. And so that's why this has become really a place of sojourn for a lot of people of African descent now to come and reconnect. And so they come to the Atlantic Ocean and things like that, but I never want them to miss the fact that don't overlook the rivers, because those were the ways that we traveled in. Those are also the places that fed our spirits and our bodies, and still do. And so that's why water for us is never a recreational activity, as I mentioned earlier. It's always about sustainability and respect. We find it as a sacred area all the time.
Oh yeah, you know that. Go ahead, Ricky Ray.
Okay, the fish are running to us. Get that big fish.
You want a shark?